We're pleased to be joined now by Christopher Cousins. He is a certified Exit Planning Advisor and C.A.P. And a member of Q5 Experience with us today on the MegaCast. Christopher, thanks for being with us.
How are you?
Doing well today. How are you doing? How's the team over there?
Very good.
So for those that aren't familiar, what is Q5 Experience? What services do you provide to businesses in our local area and throughout the state?
Yeah, so Q5 is a relatively new consortium between three different businesses. And what we do is we provide basically an exit planning process for owners of businesses. And it's a huge conversation that's going on in the United States because so many owners are, millions of businesses nationwide are owned by boomers. And they're, over the next 10 years, it's going to be a transition of these companies. And so we are part of that conversation, delivering services in a unique way.
We're joined by Christopher Cousins. He's a certified exit planning advisor and a member of the Q5 Experience with us on the MegaCast. According to industry studies, about approximately 80% of businesses do not have a written plan to transition their company to a successor. And of course, the pandemic has had a large impact on businesses. Many businesses have failed. Many businesses did end up maybe selling to competitors or larger companies to try to cut some of their losses. But others that have continued to power through the pandemic and have even maybe invested further in their company, hoping for the post-pandemic boom, may be in a position 5-10 years down the line, or even further, maybe even sooner as well, to cash in on that boom and sell their company. Right. But that comes with a lot of different steps, and there's a lot of different considerations. What should business owners or boards that own corporations, or whatever the case may be, what should they be considering when they begin to go through the process of, I'm looking to potentially sell my company in the near future?
Well, the important thing here is the differentiation between a proactive process and a transaction. A lot of times business exits come down to a transaction. The owner decides they want to sell the company, so let's go find, an outside buyer, or try to work it out where somebody inside the company buys it, or in a lot of these cases, transitioning it to family members. What we talk to them about is that we really need to get way ahead of that. So, 3 to 5 years. If we can get 3 to 5 years ahead of that, event, then there's a lot of proactive planning, and really, that's what we do. We want to take that from a transaction to a process. And so, you gave the statistic about 80% of these owners don't have a written plan. The goal is to really bring that number way up.
We're joined by Christopher Cousins, certified exit planning advisor and C.A.P. and a member of the Q5 Experience with us today on the MegaCast. And 3 to 5 years for that plan, it seems like a really long time, especially because so much can change in a 3 to 5 year period. You're going to have ebbs and flows in your business. The economy can have significant changes during that time. You never know when the next emergency situation or disaster, natural, man-made, or some other situation is going to pop up. So why that 3 to 5 year period, given that that's so much time and so much can change over that time? Why is that still kind of that perfect window to go through planning for this significant change and ultimate transaction?
Well, I'll tell you from my personal story. I am a second generation owner in a 36-year-old company. My partner and I bought our company a few years ago called Financial Architects, and we're one of the members of the Q5 Experience. And we needed that time to get ready. And we tell owners the reason why you want to use that type of time window is because one of the big things is about having a successor management team. Who is that successor management team that's going to continue the business? Because a lot of these companies, we call them lifestyle companies, where the owner is very centric to the business. And, they were probably the founder. And so the client relationships, customer vendor relationships are very much centric to their personality and their relationship. And a lot of the processes and special sauce is in their heads. And so our job is to bring all that into a strategic plan, and it takes time to do that. Ideally, 3 to 5 years. It could be less than that, but if it's too short, then it becomes too much of having to go straight to a transaction, and ideally that's not what owners would want if they really understand, the whole picture.
And it goes into not just putting your best foot forward in the process of a sale of the company, but it also takes into effect, and it has to have a significant impact on the ability to sell your company and make the best profit possible, because if you have that plan in place and potential buyers are seeing that plan, that transition plan that you may have, it may
right.
do you find it makes that company that is going up for sale that much more valuable to a buyer, because they know that it's not going to be a situation where they come in buying the company that they really like the concept behind, or they like the product, or they like the team that they have, but there's no idea what's going to happen after that sale is complete.
Exactly. Yes, that's where owner centricity is actually a detractor of value. Wow. As time goes, a successor management team is a driver of value. A leadership team that can drive this company forward, with the owner being less and less involved, or in most cases not involved at some point. Those are what drive the values. Process building, technology, diversifying customers, diversifying vendors. These are all these value drivers that we look at and focus on, and that takes time to get through. And the idea is, if 3 to 5 years, if the owners want to transition out in 3 years, so to speak, we'll actually help them drive the value of the business higher during that time, so that it increases their exit strategy for them personally and their families.
And that value rising because of that plan in place. It also has to support the momentum of the company post-sale also, because
Correct.
It's not just a company that you're selling. It's not just a product and the intellectual property necessarily that you're selling from one owner to another owner, from one ownership group to another ownership group. It's also the productivity of employees, of real people with real jobs that are supporting real families. And
right.
that uncertainty of a transition can create, I would guess, some chaotic situations in the productivity of the company if there isn't that sort of certainty and that clarity going forward. How do these transition plans also aid the employees of these companies as they're going through the transition from one ownership group or one owner to the next?
Yeah, that's a great question. That drives us a lot in the work that we do, because we don't see a company with 50 or 75 employees as just an owner's business in helping the owner get what they want. That is, of course, what we're talking about in the beginning. But we really see it as a group of 50 or 75 families that depend on this business being successful for their livelihoods. And so when you think about community and you think about Oakland County, doing this right sustains that. And it allows that business to be, continuous. And so when we do this work, we're incorporating the business aspects of all of the business metrics that we need to look at. We have a behavioral neuroscience piece of it's one of the 3 components of what we do to help the relational side of it, making sure that relationships stay strong and healthy through the transition. And then finally, the owners, the money side of it, we have to look at that as well. So all those 3 things are blended together in that, overall strategy over that period of time.
We're joined by Christopher Cousins. He is a certified exit planning advisor and a C.A.P. and member of the Q5 Experience, with us today on the MegaCast, talking about transitioning businesses from one owner to the next and making that the best situation possible, both for the outgoing owner and for their potential to profit on the sale, and for the new ownership and their team and the employees of these companies to make sure that they have a smooth transition and a future that continues to be just as fruitful as their present. And these transitions, we've said before earlier on in the interview, that these take about 3 to 5 years usually to put these plans into place and execute them as the sale is being prepared, or as putting a company up for sale is being prepared and and according to my notes, Christopher, your company then in the Q5 experience, this consortium has three critical points, three critical considerations that it makes in forming these plans. What are those critical considerations, and what then goes into each one of them to make sure that these companies are putting their best efforts forward in transitioning these companies?
So the process starts with first a discovery to introduce the business owner to the experience themselves, so they understand what it is and what it isn't. You know, a lot of times it seems like a transaction, and that's not what we're doing. So we want to make sure we're clear on that in the beginning. Then we move to the next phase where we assess things, and so we assess that things in three areas: the business considerations, all of those value drivers, some of which I mentioned; the personal financial considerations, which is what does the owner's financial strategy look like, and how do they see this business in the future providing their lifetime of net worth and income. And then thirdly, the personal considerations, which is the behavioral side. How does this work in terms of the management team? What are some things we need to be thinking about? And then also, here's a big one: what is the owner going to do once they're no longer in the business? That's a big question in that personal considerations area, because if we think about an owner that's been doing this for 35 years, this company is somewhat of their identity. And so what's life going to be like when they're no longer in the company? And so we address that right away. That's part of our assessment in the beginning. And so it's those three considerations are part of that first part.
We're joined by Christopher Cousins, Certified Exit Planning Advisor and C.A.P, and member of the Q5 experience with us on the MegaCast. And Christopher, if people are looking, if a business owner is looking to make this transition, they believe their company's at a point now where they can transition it away from their ownership, take on the profits of their years of labor, and either retire off of this or start their next business venture, whatever the case may be. If they're ready to make this transition, what's the first step that they should take? How can they get in contact with you or others in the Q5 experience?
Well, we have our website is www.q5experience.com. I will say our head of communications is Matt Derry, and he can be reached at 248-563-3613. The first step is the discovery conversation. It's a very short conversation to have the owners chat with us. There would be a couple of us, that they would talk to, myself and another gentleman. And we would discover whether or not this process is something they'd like to engage in now or eventually.
We're joined by Christopher Cousins. He's a certified exit planner and C.A.P. and a member of the Q5 experience with us today on the MegaCast. Just another minute or so before we say goodbye. Anything else that would be important for our audience to know about the Q5 experience, or about forming these transition plans, or anything else you'd like to say today, Christopher?
I would just say that this is a huge nationwide conversation, and there's going to be many of us practitioners needed to help these boomers over the next 5 to 10 years. And the key thing to remember is that every owner in that age group is going to have a transition. Whether or not it's on their terms is really the question. And so if owners want to have a transition that is on their terms, then I would suggest they call us and have a discovery call, and we can find out what that means to them.
Well, Chris, we appreciate your time. Thanks for being with us today, and having this interesting conversation.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.